Welcome back to our RSI recorded webcast series. These recordings have been developed in support of the articles, blog posts, and podcast episodes that you can find on restac.net in our resource center. There you can also find relevant restaurant industry trends and topics like budgeting, food costing, menu engineering, labor management, hospitality compliance, and more. If you have any questions during the presentation, tweet them to us at RSI Operations, #LongHaulHires. This month at RSI, we've been aiming to educate our clients on the best strategies to mitigate employee turnover. If you typically tune into our resource center and follow our posts and podcasts around our monthly themes, you may have noticed we changed things up a bit. RSI partner and strategic development officer Matt Vanini sat down with Adam Schlegel, co-founder of Snooze, an AM eatery, to discuss our topic of reducing employee turnover. We asked Adam to share his perspective on mitigating employee turnover to see what makes his snoozers so happy while taking a deeper look at the group's ethos of service. After listening to Matt and Adam chat, we were inspired to keep filtering out more strategies on hiring for the long haul. We took a look at some of our clients' most disastrous stories of turnover to see what could have been done differently or what was done well in both the hiring and employment stages. Turnover is something that every restaurant has to deal with, and it's enormously costly when it tends to happen more often than not. During today's webcast, we're going to look at what it takes to keep your team members around so you can safely say your joint is well off without that infamous revolving employee door. We're going to round out this session with one of our own clients' most disastrous stories of turnover and decode the disaster ourselves. Quick side note, guys, we wrote about this instance of turnover in our most recent blog post, so if you haven't had a chance to read it yet, it'd be a great time to pause the webcast after we roll through our pro checklist. Then you can find the story on our website, restac.net, in our resource center. Take a pen and paper and jot down what you would have done differently. When you tune back in, you can see what you've learned today and compare your analysis with ours. If you have anything you'd like to add, let us know. We love hearing from you, so again, you can tweet it to us at RSI Operations, #LongHaulHire. Pro tip, hiring good team members isn't luck of the Irish. Know exactly what you need for each job code before you interview candidates. Finding the right hire, keyword here being right, means it's on you to put in the extra time and effort from the get-go. You have to know it before you can grow it. So in other words, it's critical to know exactly what you're looking for within each position and each team member before you hire. Let's start with job codes and dissect out in detail what the position entails. So ask yourself, what functions do I need from this position? What are the long-term goals associated with it? What boundaries do I need to set to make it clear where one job code stops and another starts? It's essential to have a crystal clear path with boundaries within each job code. If it's difficult for you to pinpoint the minute details required within each position, guess what? It's going to be 10 times as difficult trying to translate your unclear information to a potential hire. Next, look what type of team member you ideally want to fulfill the position. Here's where you need to look beyond the skill set alone and really dig deep to realize your ideal fit. What attributes should this person have? Who will they interact with on a daily basis, and what should that look like? Once you identify your needs for both position requirements as well as the type of person who would be successful to meet those requirements, you're ready to start your search. So we've come up with a checklist of our top 10 strategies to ensure you're hiring for the long run. We talk about the vision a lot. We talk about it because it's an incredibly important piece to all aspects of your organization. The vision should trickle through everything you do, and it's imperative you hire people who share your vision. Allow them to see the bigger picture and how they fit in. It's up to you to set the tone from the start. And this goes hand in hand with setting the standard. On the last slide, we talked about knowing in great detail what the job code requires to become successful and the boundaries within it. Again, it's up to you to relay the message to your potential hires so they fully understand what you're looking for. You have to be clear from the beginning. As Adam told Matt in our podcast, don't reinvent the purpose. Finally, don't interview potential hires by yourself. Bring people in the interview who will be working with that person regularly and get second opinions so you can see how this person will fit in with the rest of the team. One of, if not the most important factors when hiring is to hire for aspiration over functionality. Clearly, your potential hire will need some sort of base skill set necessary to perform the job properly, but anything past that can be taught. You hire for attitude and then you train for skill. Let me explain. You can have all the skill in the world, but if you lack the motivation to better yourself and surpass your set goals, skill set's not going to matter. But on the flip side, if you hire a person with a great attitude, who you know is going to be a great fit for the team, Their own personal drive will be the factor that pushes them to learn more and progress their skills. They are the better hire. Now, that being said, to enable yourself to hire for aspiration over functionality, you have to take the reins and provide your team with path to success. Invest in your people and give them the proper tools and training they need to be successful. Even if they're willing and able to learn, it's not going to happen if you don't have an avenue for them to do it. Training takes time. The more time and effort you're willing to put towards both initial and ongoing training, the better your team's going to be. The best way for your team to represent your brand with authority and pride is to arm them with knowledge. These next 2 points on our checklist are more so points of molding factors for your team members. Once you hire people on, you can take them and mold them into even better employees. Again, it all starts with you. A common thread I'm sure you've seen weaving through this presentation. It's absolutely essential that anyone in a managerial or role model type position lead by example. It's human nature for most people to take a follower role, and your team will follow and emulate what you do. Want to teach your team how to treat an unruly guest? You show them. Secondly, enabling your team the freedom and creativity to take their positions and make it their own allows for a better work environment. You won't have robots marching to the same beat, serving your guests with a lack of passion and enthusiasm for what they do. Allow your team to be passionate about their work, and it will shine through to the guests. You have to keep your team motivated. They have to know you care about them, and they have to understand you have their best interest at heart. There are many different motivation factors, whether it comes from time off, bonuses, friendly competition, or anything of the sort. Get to know your team and what makes them tick. When your team truly feels you understand their pains and make a concerted effort to support them, they're going to do the same for you. They will become the best ambassadors you could ask for. Wages back that notion. This isn't to say you have to be the highest paying joint on the block, but you get what you pay for, right? And I absolutely love this quote from former GE CEO Jack Welch. If you pick the right people and give them the opportunity to spread their wings and put compensation as a carrier behind it, you almost don't have to manage them. So in summary, there are far too many factors that play major roles of importance when looking for the right fit, hiring the right fit, and then keeping the right fit. Ignoring any of those factors will result in that revolving employee door spinning round and round until you learn there's so much more to it. Never revolve your hiring process entirely around your bottom line. And that, my friends, is the bottom line. Let's take a look at the story we posted on our last blog post and see what you've learned. After we read it, compare your analysis to ours. I needed a new server for my upscale burger joint. We'd recently lost a couple of our servers to new life ventures, and my team was feeling the pressure without them around. I realized I needed to start the interview process, and fast. I decided I would save some money, and instead of hiring 2 people, I would hire on just 1 more server to fill our gap. I had about 7 people come in for interviews, and of the 7, 1 really stood out to me. Joe had a remarkable resume and seemed to be precisely what I was looking for. For starters, he'd eaten at my restaurant numerous times. Great, I thought. He's already been briefly introduced to our concept and has seen my team full speed ahead at work. He clearly likes the concept, otherwise he wouldn't be looking for work here. Check. He had years of experience as a server, and on top of that, fine dining experience from restaurants that seemed to be doing well, at least as far as I could tell. Double check. Judging by his resume, Joe had all the ability in the world to step in and make up for our missing pieces. He didn't initially strike me as the guy who everyone would be friends with, but he could do the job, and he could do it well. I gave him a quick synopsis of what his job would entail, and he signed the dotted line. I was so excited I'd filled the void quickly, and I knew my team would be just as enthused. Joe would start on Monday. I scheduled him to shadow with our top server on our slowest day so he could really soak everything in and learn the ropes. He would be shadowing for the next week, and then he was on his own. Throughout the first week, Joe was gung-ho. He was clearly trying, and I felt he was succeeding thus far. He'd been on his own for around a month when I started to hear comments from various team members that Joe had an attitude problem. I personally couldn't see it, and from my perspective, he was excelling. Sure, he wasn't Mr. Popular, but he also wasn't hurting my bottom line. A few more months rolled by, and I noticed a friendship forming between Joe and some of my managers. Maybe it just took him a bit of time to settle in and get to know everyone. Now, I believed he was fitting in. Wrong. Unbeknownst to me, Joe had been taking more shots with our bartenders than orders from our patrons. He somehow felt that his workdays were playdays and our guests were secondary. I started to see the attitude problem that I'd previously heard through the grapevine. Joe was an issue that needed to be dealt with before the fire got bigger. We sat down, had a come to Jesus talk, and I assumed he knew I meant business. I decided not to put him on an action plan because I foolishly presumed he was an adult and would take my criticisms with heed. Another few weeks rolled by and nothing changed. To top it off, one of our most loyal guests submitted a complaint about the service he'd recently received. I'm sure you can guess who his server was. Within only a few months of service, Joe was already making my situation far worse than it was when I was down some servers. He needed to go, and I had to pick up the pieces from the mess he left. I would have to start the hiring process all over again. I would have to cross my fingers I wouldn't hire another Joe. So right off the bat, this operator stated they would hire one person to fill a gap instead of two. Starting off with the mentality of hiring to satisfy a bottom line wasn't a great start. Secondly, there were no alternate opinions given of Joe because no one else was involved in the interview process. A person who wouldn't be on the floor with Joe every day like the others would, was the only one in the interview. Next, they hired for functionality over aspiration. Again, a great resume doesn't automatically make you a great worker. Unfortunately, this operator ignored many red flags of fit issues. First, during the actual interview process, and then secondly, when you started to hear comments around work, but they fell on deaf ears. Another issue we see here is that there was no clear vision from the start. Sure, Joe had eaten at this restaurant before, but is that enough to truly understand a concept and see the vision? Not in the least bit. And a quick synopsis of what his job would entail is far too skeletal for anyone to grasp the true meat of the position and understand their role. No expectations were set, so it seems like Joe felt he had carte blanche with his actions, trickling over to taking shots on duty, which in itself is just poor management. Lead by examples, right? Finally, to top it all off, there was no documented disciplinary action plan, an HR nightmare when it comes to terminations. Luckily, Joe didn't put up a fight when he got the axe, but if he had, none of his poor behavior was documented. This new hire story was unfortunately a disaster from the start, but I do think it should be noted that this operator made the right call on something you may have missed, and that was starting Joe on a Monday. So pro tip, Monday is a great administrative day. It's typically a slower day, so you should perform all of your interviews, new hire paperwork, or start your new hires when you're not impacting the guest experience. We hope we were able to show you some effective strategies to mitigate high rates of employee turnover. Just remember, we're here to educate and assist you with our best practices, insider tips, and even the same tools that we offer to our own clients. If you have any questions about what we do or find any of the tools or strategies from this presentation might be relevant to your own restaurant, don't hesitate to reach out and request a demo.